mixing up the music a little bit today.
Go get it, say, hey, Willie, go get it. What do you mean, go get it? Man, that ball's way
Welcome
in
along.
left field. I don't care what field it's in.
Hey, everybody.
It's all field. Every
Forgot
time
there
we
was the
come to the
whole
game, we talking about Willie
spoken
Mays
intro
on.
to this
That's
tune.
right. Let's call Willie Nasty.
All right, it is
Oh,
roasting
okay.
outside, so I'm
Yeah.
just going to work from home today.
Are you Willie Mays?
Yes.
Whose ball was that?
Why was it?
In left field.
Well, that's Evans' ball.
Hey,
I told
Luann. Hey,
you,
Martin.
man.
Hey, Sarah.
Every time we come to the game, we got to talk about it. The next time I'm going to sit in the grandstand.
Say, hey, fellas, what's your name?
Say who?
Say Willie.
Hey, Karen.
Say hey. Say who? Swinging at the plate.
Hey,
Say
Todd.
Say who? Say Willie. That
Morning, Mom.
kid is great. When he hits the ball, it's slow.
Hey, Bob.
Man. Hits it farther than Cappy can. Swings
Hey,
the
Julianne.
bat like a little laid back.
Hey,
When
Susan.
he
Hey,
hits the
Karen.
ball, it's
Like my new
over
rug.
like Say hey. Say who? Say Willie. Say hey. Say who? Swing it at the plate. Say hey. Say who? Say
Yeah, there's a lot of
Willie.
stuff I need to be doing, but it is too hot, so I'm not going to. But, hey, Gene.
Runs the bases like a choo-choo train.
Staying home doing some cleaning today. Indoors.
His cap flies off when he passes third.
And refreshing my fabric cubes down here with some Frank Lloyd Wright window tea towels that I picked up yesterday. Yo, Roberta. Hey, Dory.
Plate, say hey. Say Willie.
Hey, Kathy.
Kid is great.
And a good Juneteenth to everybody.
Of a center like he had jet shoes. The other batters get the Willie blues. Anything hit his way is out. Man, it just don't pay those guys to clout. Say hey, say who? Say Willie. Say hey, say who? Swing it at the plate. Say hey, say who? Say Willie. That Giants kid is great.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting for the Mod Podge to dry here now. And a new rug back over here that the cats just love. Morning, everybody. I'm gradually working on.
His Uncle Sam. He left the
Yeah,
Giants
Wright would not approve of me using tea towel for this kind of thing, but you know what? Rules are for ordinary people.
Still a growing boy. Say hey, say who?
It's a line I'm going to use a lot. People tell me don't use a voice amplifier when you're talking about these houses. Rules are for the average.
Say Willie. That
I got a note from Frank. He says I can.
That
He used to work the ghost tours, you know.
Say Willie.
Morning, Chris. Hey, Susan.
What you gonna say?
Hey, Laura.
Say, hey.
Glad to have you sneaking in, Laura. Hey, everybody. All right, say hey, Willie Mays. I was watching last night. I was watching a minor league game that was played at Rickwood Field in Birmingham, one of the last surviving Negro League ballparks, where Willie Mays actually got his start playing for the Birmingham Black Barons. When they broke in to announce that Willie had passed away, I've never heard an announcer so openly sobbing like that. It was one of those television moments that I think I'm going to remember a while. Just happened to be watching a game there when that was announced. It was really something. I remember when I was a kid, I was amazed to find out that Willie Mays was still alive. He wasn't even like 60 at the time that I thought that. But he just seems to have come from this whole other era of baseball giants. He's not the last, but arguably the strongest link back to that day when baseball just held such a sway over the nation. So one guy put on Twitter is like the last link to when Major League Baseball was played in Norman Rockwell's America. And that may be. So today, though, I was going to go out to Graceland Cemetery for one that I always like to highlight on Juneteenth. But it is really hot outside. So we're going to head to Graceland virtually. Luckily, I have some film footage for this. This is what I always want to cover. Juneteenth refers to a day that it was announced in the Galveston papers that slavery is over. This means you. A lot of people in Texas especially had not really had a presence of Union troops, so a lot of them were just kind of trying to keep it on the lowdown and figuring, well, they don't mean us. They'll never notice. But then circulating things saying, well, all these people who have now been supposedly emancipated are just being lazy and living off the government's money and not doing any work. And, George Emerson Strong, who was not too far from Jack Johnson at Graceland, went and investigated that, said, well, that's a bunch of crap, and found people well after Juneteenth south of of the Trinity River who still hadn't gotten the message yet. But anyway, it came to be a celebration Juneteenth, the day that people, at least in Galveston, finally found out. And from there, the word spread. Well, the reason this is Jack Johnson, who was, of course, the first black heavyweight champion of the world. And one thing I'm always amused by is looking up newspapers from when Melville Fuller died. Melville Fuller was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, buried not far from here at Graceland Cemetery, presided over such decisions as the one that decided that separate but equal could be the law of the land, among other really nasty decisions. He is generally said to have disliked slavery personally, but he's one of those guys who disliked abolitionists more. But the day he died happened to be the day of a Jack Johnson fight, and this was an era when boxing was a way bigger deal than the Supreme Court. So there's a lot of these articles, Justice Fuller dead, and Jack Johnson going, ugh. You'd find these on pretty much any front page in the nation that day, where the death of Justice Fuller was definitely smaller news than Jack Johnson knocking out Jeffries. There's another one here. Chief Justice Fuller dead. Almost feel like he's Chief Justice Fuller dead. Champion Johnson. Refused to do this pose. All right, but the interesting thing here also is when I took this video over to the left of the family marker, they hadn't yet added a marker for Johnson's mother, who usually went by Teeny, according to the newspapers of the day, but she was his mother, and she was born in Galveston, where she was enslaved. So she would have been just over 8 years old when the Juneteenth announcement came in Galveston. She's one of the people who would have found out that she was no longer enslaved on Juneteenth. And I think that's just fascinating. She ended up here in Chicago. And when people criticized her son, all she would say is, well, all I can say is his mama lives in a big house and doesn't have to work. Yeah. But all right. Sarah, this was well before. This was the one that made segregation okay, not Brown versus Board of Education, several decades before that. But while we are on the subject today, also the news of the day, I want to cover just briefly up by the pond is Ernie Banks, who the Chicago Cubs brought in from the Kansas City Monarchs. They had brought another person who was going to be the first black Cub. Well, that guy pulled a hamstring, and so Ernie Banks ended up almost by default. Similar to Willie Mays, he was known for his jovial personality and his sheer love of playing baseball. When he says, let's play two, that means, why don't we play 2 baseball games today? Ernie is right over here. This is the third thing I have shown people at Graceland. There was an earlier temporary monument that was put up there just because it took a long time to make this one, and people kept asking. But here is Ernie with Willie Mays at Wrigley Field one day. So, all right, everyone. Have I started playing a new song yet? Oh, no, different Jack Johnson. Well, all right, everybody, thank you very much for joining me here today. It's kind of a quick one, doing it from home because it is really on the hot side outside. I was going to do this. I was going to do this all actually at Graceland, and I took a step outside and said, yeah, nah. But all right, everybody. Well, here's one difference. Willie Mays was in several World Series games, including the game of that famous catch. Ernie Banks never made it to the World Series. He was playing for the Cubs the whole time. They never won the World Series in his lifetime. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me. And once again, the Brewers will still give paper tickets to large school groups. So thanks for joining me. I'm Adam from Mysterious Chicago Tours. Tomorrow night, for the hot weather, perfect. It'll be our annual tiki-based time travel pub crawl. Time Travel Pub Crawl presents Endless Summer and tiki-themed bars. Just the thing for these really, really hot days. So thanks everybody for joining me on this day. I gotta get back to cleaning, so I will see you all tomorrow. I think we're gonna do Find a Grave Thursday tomorrow, if it's not too absolutely blazingly hot. But all right, everyone, thanks for joining me. I'm Adam from Mysterious Chicago, telling everybody to stay safe, stay strong, stay hydrated, stay cool, and then you can stay spooky. Thanks, everybody.